Langsham, Leo, the land of 1,000,000 elephants. These jungles were once home to more than 3,000 elephants, but a partial ban on logging left many elephant owners and mahouts without an income. The working elephants have become a liability to their owners. As poaching and the human population expanded into their habitat, their numbers declined dramatically, and today there are only as few as 600 remaining. Stealing Giants tracks veteran wildlife crime investigator Carl Aman as he unravels the mystery behind Leo's dwindling elephant population.
Most of these elephants were involved in logging 10, 20 years ago. All the timber is pretty much gone, all the teak wood in the forests. So tourism is one way for them to earn their keep.
Their use in domestic tourism is not what's concerning him. He's discovered that wealthy entrepreneurs are enticing the cash-strapped owners to illegally sell their elephants to so-called safari parks. Not only in the region, but as far afield as Dubai.
Laos, of course, has been a basket case in terms of illegal wildlife trade for decades. But then about 3 years ago, I started hearing about Dubai Safari Park importing a large number of elephants from Laos, which couldn't have possibly been legal under the very strict CITES rules and regulations.
CITES, the UN-based international wildlife trade regulatory body, don't issue permits for the commercial trade of threatened or endangered species.
The Dubai order was placed about a year ago. Dr. Reza Khan, the former director of Dubai Safari, came and chose 16 out of 20 elephants they had lined up for him.
On the outskirts of the Lao capital, Vientiane, our fixer has tracked the abandoned elephant export crates, but there's no sign of the elephants.
We have the 16 boxes which were used in the attempt to get these elephants to Dubai.
In the UAE, Carl teams up with a local investigator in an attempt to uncover the whereabouts of the missing elephants at the zoo, while he talks to local environmental conservation officials who dodge questions about the illegal importation.
If you would like to tackle this problem, we have to take the whole picture. Development and livelihood in the exporting country is part of the solution. Enforcement in the country of export is part of the solution.
It is because it's meant for the Asian elephant. But unfortunately, our elephant hasn't arrived yet because they still don't have the passports and visas.
The safari park outside the city also draws a blank. Back in Layer, the source of the failed elephant rendition is identified. A mahout identifies the animals from pictures and confirms that the animals were bought and paid for, but never left the country. Borton, a boom town in the north of the country, is a well-known smuggling route and the only other possible way of how the elephants have left Layer.
Okay, this is now the Laotian part of the border. Across there is China. This is the biggest thoroughfare in Southeast Asia for goods coming all the way from Singapore into China and vice versa. So this is a special economic zone where anything God has forbidden goes. Okay, this group of elephants here at Borton are here to entertain tourists, but the mahouts have just explained 25 elephants left from here in the last year to China. These two are about to go as well over there. These two are recent arrivals here, haven't been chosen yet by Chinese buyers. This goes on day in and day out. So I'm now digging out some pictures of the Dubai elephants, which might be an give us an inside track that they recognize that we know our stuff. So they will know all these elephants because they all come from the same place. Maybe even we see some of the guys here.
Yeah, Dubai. Come sing.
The mahouts recognize the elephants, but assure Carl that they haven't passed through Borton. During the day, the mahouts parade their elephants around the dusty, noisy town, looking for water and food. Even as night falls, there's no respite for the elephants. Tourists from China flock to Borton to take part in gambling, prostitution, and the infamous ladyboy shows. The elephants are tethered close by as part of the attraction, immersed in the thumping music and flashing lights.
Now it has gotten absurd. The Chinese have arrived by the bus loads full. Seems to be a daily scenario, turning over very big money, about $40 a person for the show. And the elephants obviously have to listen to it every night. It's the same routine every night.
The elephants appear to have to touch to communicate above the racket. Carl's concerned about the welfare of the elephants, whose super senses are undoubtedly being compromised by being forced to survive in this environment, and he decides to try and prevent them from becoming yet another illegal export. The next morning, he takes the first step in rescuing the elephants.
But is there a way, as I said, I want to know the name of the owner, the phone number. Can we get it? You have to walk around, they say. This is the trafficking route. The border is right up there. Probably about 100 elephants have gone this route. Whole herds have been walked or driven into China without international clearance in terms of CITES documentation. And it's just a joke that this is allowed to happen.
But just how are elephants able to cross a border without permits? A colleague, a Hong Kong-based fixer, is called in to try and solve the riddle of the elephants that are simply being able to be walked across an international border. Carl wondered if the missing Dubai herd had already gone this way, And if the Borden Entertainment Group would be the next to simply disappear into the labyrinth of safari parks in China. A rumored wildlife smuggling staging point outside the Laotian capital seemed a good starting point.
So it's nice that they get to cool down. Great. Okay, now this is a camp where supposedly elephants are kept and some are sold into China. I mean, that's what we heard from a third party. So we tried to verify this data. So we called the owner of this setup. You talked to her first.
喂，你好，你好。
Securing illegal export permits appeared to be easily arranged, but the border crossing into China still needed work.
Work on the China side. Do you know someone who can help to arrange that? You don't know anyone. Okay, so I will have to find someone in China who can help me fix the paperwork in China side.
Okay, just arrived in another nondescript town in China, flying on an airline I'd never even heard of before, but we got here all right. And we know that some of these places, especially this one, will go through about 50,000 visitors a day or a weekend, certainly. The average spending seems to be about $50 per person, so we're talking $2 million income on a given weekend, a day like today. So this is all about money. This is about turning over cash, having desirable species like the elephants, and this is where the big money is made. Millions and millions of Chinese have now the disposable income, so this is what it's all about. It's all very commercial. Three have just showed up down by the river here. The message from some sources is that pretty much all of them were imported from Laos, these 30, which now they claim to be a wild herd of elephants. Huge infrastructure around these 30, meaning there's a cable car, there's these walkways, there's even a camping ground over there, so there's a whole big infrastructure around seeing supposedly wild elephants down here. So again, commercialization at its very best with smuggled animals from Laos. Based on the statistics which are available, which is mostly from Chinese media, is about 80 elephants have been imported into China in the last 3 years from Laos, actually all totally illegal. We know that this place imported 11 in 2015. We know of 2 of them, the babies, which we were told are from Laos, so we don't know what happened to the other 9. They might have been mixed in with the so-called wild elephants out there, or they might have been resold to other zoos. The markup is very considerable. They buy these elephants in Laos for $20,000 to $25,000, depending on the level of performance they're already familiar with. And then they sell them to Chinese zoos internally once they're here for $100,000 to $150,000. There's one company based here in Qinghong, which seems to be the main trading company, buying up these elephants, bringing them across the border. We came yesterday, reselling them into China, making a fortune in the process. And it's all totally commercial. There's nothing scientific about it. There's nothing really educational about it. That would be a society stipulation for exchange of elephants, but there's none of that happening. Purely 100% commercial, totally illegal under the CITES Convention.
Perhaps the local office of the International Wildlife Trade Regulator could explain the illegal trade.
This is the CITES office. We have one of the permits which shows the imports of 11 elephants from Laos to here, which couldn't have been legal for several reasons. So we want to see if we find anybody who can explain to us how this was all possible and see what the reaction is. And they said it's for breeding purposes. We explained to them that that wasn't an answer, in a sense that CITES 1 animals cannot be traded commercially across the border.
All the safari parks we visited in the region were using elephants illegally for commercial purposes.
Okay, we are here at the Guizhou Zoo, which is the biggest importer of Laotian elephants. They imported about 12 2 years ago.
In Leo, there's good news for the embattled Dubai elephants. A presidential instruction had stopped their export, and they were en route to the elephant sanctuary near the central Laotian town of Sayaburi. Carl visits the sanctuary as a potential home for the Borton elephants he's wanting to rescue. Recovering elephants are provided with veterinary care while recovering from a life in logging or mass tourism. In the 500-hectare wild area, they're free to roam and hopefully one day even breed. Carl returned to Borton to finalize the purchase of 2 of the older elephants. Once their registration is completed, they'll be moved to the Elephant Conservation Center. And the first step in restoring Leo's stolen giants will have been taken.